Hey everyone, Dr. G. So no one's showing up to office hour slash lecture hour. We are in week 4. Can you believe it? So I've been busy. I'm grading. I'm catching up. Lots of late assignments being turned in. So I apologize if some of you are like, Dr. G, you're kind of waiting till like the very last minute to give me some feedback. I am still within like my policy and my guidelines. I apologize about that. I am working with others who are submitting their assignments late. And so that is pushing me back. So I apologize to all of you who are continuing to submit your assignments on time. Really appreciate that. And you will definitely see that in your scores going forward. So bear with me, but we're in week 4. So I didn't want to leave you with nothing because week 4 is kind of an important week, but kind of one of your easiest weeks, to be honest. And I say that because I've been doing this for so long that honestly, the paper is not hard. You don't have like a lot like majorly due, right? So like you've got some reading to do, but nothing like crazy major. So I am going to share my screen with you all. So bear with me one second. Share my screen. So I wanted to, for those who could pop in or can pop in, so here's our interpersonal communication class. I'm going to make this into the actual slideshow. So our interpersonal class, here's what I'm going to talk about today for you. So week number 4 is the discussion, which I'm going to cover just briefly. Week 4, quiz 2, I'm going to just tell you how much and how important that quiz really is. So if you've taken it already and you didn't do really well on it, you may want to go back and kind of think about, okay, well, how much is this going to affect my grade? And then I want to cover like week number 4 paper and then something else I have up my sleeve. So let's get started, shall we? So your week 4 discussion has everything to do with this active empathetic listening, right? So what's really kind of cool about active empathetic listening is that you have to remain actively engaged during a conversation. So how do you do that? Well, there's 5 steps to active listening. And so what you can do is if someone's talking to you without interrupting, without stopping them, what you can do is you can ask open-ended questions. You can also summarize what that person has said. So if somebody says to you something along the lines of like, this is what I had for dinner last night, and my husband and I, or significant other and I, we ended up having lasagna with this, that, and the other, and the kids were running around, and you get where I'm going. You can actually summarize what they said so they know that you are actively listening to them, which makes it also important that you understood the information being received. Furthermore, you can reflect back on what was said, and if needed, you can just like really kind of give them some really empathetic advice. So if somebody said, you know, I've had a really rough day yesterday, or you know, I got in a fight, or I had a conflict with, you know, with my kid this morning, and you know, it was crazy, but you know, I yelled and screamed at them, and I feel really bad. Then what you could say is, you know, to that individual that's sharing this information with you is, wow, you know, I'm really sorry that you had a really tough morning. And that's empathy, but you're also actively listening to the story and what happened. You can clarify. It's pretty kind of difficult because you don't want to like gloss over like a lot of information, but you want to make sure that you tell them that you're listening by wanting to clarify the information that they're sharing. So the information that you're receiving, is it the right information? Is it accurate information, right? And then reacting, how do you react? Are you bored? Are you leaning in? Are you listening? Are you being active? Are you doing something else? Are you being distracted? That kind of stuff. So currently right now, no one's listening to me. However, my phone is going off and I'm being text messaged. And so that's distracting me from being able to participate and actively give you the information provided. So any type of distraction. So what happened was in the instructor feedback and in the classroom itself, this has been going on for quite some time and it still hasn't been fixed. I'm apologize profusely. So you, in the announcement, I'm sure you all saw that there are more quizzes that you can take in the announcement section. So you can choose to take these 3 quizzes, you can choose to take 1 quiz, you can choose to take all 3 quizzes. I would suggest what would be fun is taking all of them and see what they say and see if they're similar, see if they're different, and then coming back and then of course reporting that. You can also, there is a listening quiz or listening kind of table inside our book. And so you can also do that and take that quiz there. But these are kind of the more, the quizzes that were closer to the quiz that you were going to take for the week 4 discussion. So feel free to log into the announcements and find them. And I'm going to post this here after classes, after this has been recorded. So y'all can watch this at any time, as well as I'm going to upload these for you. Furthermore, so in the discussion itself, you want to define what active empathetic listening is. But the most important thing besides using Bevan, right, is report on both the meaning and significance of the definition in your own words. So that's great. We can use definitions all day long, right, by authors, and we need to, because that validates what we're saying as speakers and as individuals with relationships. However, if you can't talk about it in your own words, you can't just pull out a book at any point in time and be like, oh, you know what, let me pull out my textbook, right? So what you want to do is you want to be able to talk about the meaning and significance of the definition in your own words. Not your opinion, but the meaning and significance of this definition in your own words. Complete the listening quiz or quizzes and report your findings to our group. And then explain how you can use active empathetic listening to help you improve your communication in either your personal interactions and or in the workplace. If you don't work, that's okay. What do? Are you part of a group? What do you, are you, maybe you've got a book club, maybe you're part of a knitting group. I crochet. I don't have a crochet group, but maybe if I was a part of a group, I would go. My mom's a part of Scrabble. Maybe she could talk about it and in that kind of social aspect. And then how does it, for personal interaction, how does that also, how will this help you improve with these types of relationships? Furthermore, it's always this define, describe, right? And then now we're going to apply. And applying means provide at least one example of how exactly you can change your listening habits and how you will benefit from this change. Don't forget that. This is the part that students typically forget. They typically will give the example of how these listening habits will help them, but they always forget about how they're going to benefit from this change. Don't be afraid to look for outside sources. Don't be afraid to just use Bevan. Also, go to your significant others, go to your family and friends, go to your bosses and your coworkers and say, hey, how do you think my listening habits will change? And how will they benefit me if I do X, Y, and Z, right? And then come back and tell us about it. That would be super exciting. So just kind of think about those things as you're doing the week 4 discussion. So we've got 3 quizzes actually, if not 4. I think we've got 3, but week 4 quiz number 2, it's worth 20 points, y'all. 20 points, not the 10, 20. That's 10% of your overall grade. Just this quiz alone. Week 2, we had the same thing. In week 2, you had a 20-point quiz worth 10% of your grade. So that's 2 quizzes that are 20% of your overall grade. Plus just your discussion responses are 30% just your responses. So with that being said, or your responses and your responses back to your classmates, that's 50% of your grade. That's a lot, y'all. So I just want you to make sure that you read before you take the chapter quizzes. It's super important. I don't want you to lose out on this 10% that you can totally do better in. It is due August 2nd by 11:59. I have 10:59 on my time. Remember, it's Mountain Standard Time. Y'all just get it in. I'm really not that picky about 11:59, 10:59, 9:59. Just as long as it's in by end of day, and end of day to me is 11:59 your time, then that's fine. So due August 2nd. So we've got this kind of fun and exciting paper assignment. Super easy, y'all. Let me repeat. Super easy, y'all. So you want to cover and make sure that you read chapters 8 and 9. This is all about conflict management, conflict resolution, relationship management, right? So what you get to do is you actually get to pick either a television series or a film. And you can watch the show Blackish, Modern Family, or This Is Us, or film options of Frozen and Aaron Brockovich. If you have seen Frozen a million times with your children, rewatch it, because now you're watching it with a different eye. You're also watching it with learning about conflict and conflict resolution and relationship management. So this is kind of why you're doing this. Aaron Brockovich is a fantastic movie, and it has a ton of conflict in it, but it also is just this real life story, which is kind of cool. But then Blackish, Modern Family, and This Is Us, they're 30-minute to 45-minute shows, not very long to where the movies are a little bit lengthier. But I've had people just gather their families around and sit around the table and watch this, and then they talk about the conflicts that they see. So here's my suggestion. Just watch the shows or the movie first. Don't worry about what's inside the paper and what the paper requirements are. Just watch the shows and or watch the movie. Then go back and watch it thinking about conflict and conflict resolution. And then start taking notes. So in the paper requirements, you first want to define conflict using Bevan. Again, also defining it in your own words. Then what you're going to do is you're going to describe only one interpersonal conflict that was not handled effectively. There could be 20 inside just one 30-minute television show. I promise you. You just need to choose one conflict. You're going to describe this conflict. So tell me what happens. Paint that picture for me. And tell me why it was not handled correctly in the television episode or film. Furthermore, what type of conflict is occurring? So when you describe one interpersonal conflict, think about the type of interpersonal conflict that is occurring. That is what is missed often in this paper. Furthermore, you are then going to explain how this situation, just in this situation, meets the criteria for interpersonal conflict. You are only focusing on one exchange of one conflict and not the entire series or episode. Provide dialogue. This makes your paper go from basic to proficient to distinguished, to show and to clearly paint that picture to see how the characters handled the situation. Then what you're going to do is you're going to explain why the conflict was not handled effectively. So utilizing Bevan in chapters 8 and 9. So explain why the conflict was not handled effectively. And it does not need to be the same in meeting the criteria. It is going to be something different. So every one of these is different. Let me make this clear. Describing your interpersonal conflict. What type of interpersonal conflict is it? What's happening? explain the situation and how it meets the criteria. There is criteria for conflict. But then you're going to explain why the conflict was not handled effectively. Why? So that is separate from the following, the ones above. You're going to then describe 2 strategies outlined in Bevan that the characters used to address the conflict. So what did the characters do to address the conflict? Then you're going to describe 2 strategies that the characters could or should have used to resolve this conflict more effectively. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. I have a couple sample papers to show you. So here is your sample paper from your class. So if you go to sample week 4, let me zoom in a little bit. As you can see, here is your introduction. Many of you are missing introductions and many of you are missing conclusions, or you're doing an intro and not doing a conclusion. Your papers need both. Defining conflict, conflict example, ineffective handling, addressing the conflict, what they could have done, and in conclusion. Okay. This paper is a little long, which is okay. I'd rather have it a little long, but it's longer because we have a cover page and we have your reference page in APA format. Furthermore, I have a sample paper to show you, and I will send this out. Again, this is from a former student. Interpersonal conflict, introduction, defining conflict in their own words and using Bevan. Conflict example, they use Modern Family. Ineffective handling, addressing the conflict. This needs a little bit more development. What they could have done, again, do you see how this is a little bit more developed? And in conclusion could be a little bit more developed, about 5 sentences. But remember, in your introduction, you don't give too much away, but in your conclusion, you can talk about what you talked about and describe what you discussed. And then you have your reference page. So you have to reference the movie or the TV show as well. Keep in mind, I will send this out as well to you all after this. So those are the sample papers. So moving forward, I hope that that has helped you understand what is coming. Oh, and your paper is only 2 to 3 pages. So add a cover sheet and a reference page, you're at 5 pages, 6 pages. It's nothing now. So, and it's super easy. You get to watch a show, kind of relax, sit back, eat some popcorn, right? So I've been getting some questions about the communication notebook again. And I want to make sure that you all understand this pretty well. What I want you to do is go and visit the final week and download the communication notebook template. So let me show you. So you can go to the modules. You can go to week 5 and go to final paper. You then will download, and you can download it to your computer, but this is the template and exactly what you will be submitting the day of the day you submit your paper. You'll have a title page and references, but again, I need you all to go to week 5 in modules, visit week 5, download the communication notebook, okay? Then when you take your quiz and it says complete, did it, didn't do it, this is an honor system. This is basically saying, are you on track? are you doing this? So in weeks 2, 4, and 5, let me show you. In week 1, you were given what type of exercise to do. In week 2, please list your exercise. It's blank. Step 1, describe your findings. So what did you do as your exercise? And then describe what you did. So talk about it. And in week 5, you'll apply your learning. Weeks 2, 4, and 5, you choose the exercise and describe it. So here's some examples. You can talk about maybe using bias language. Maybe you had a discussion with family members about bias language around the table. Maybe you broke a social norm. Maybe you decided to break a social norm. So what did you do? What was your social norm? You can talk about culture and communication. Maybe some of you are in intercultural relationships. Maybe some of you, maybe language isn't your, English isn't your first language. And so maybe there's a barrier between, a language barrier between you and whomever you speak to. So you could talk about these things. You can also talk about self-disclosure, communication apprehension. Maybe you were asked this week by your boss, or something happened this week or last week or whatever, and you can talk about communication apprehension. It doesn't have to go in order of what we're learning. Let me make that clear. The information and the stuff you do does not have to go in order. You just have to do something as an example. Additionally, you can talk about conflict, competent communicator, maybe being a chameleon. Maybe that's in week 5, right? You could talk about social support, whatever you want to talk about. But that stuff comes as you all are reading. But again, it's an honor system. But I will tell you that if you have not started on this communication notebook, you're in a lot of trouble. So I would start now, especially since this week is kind of an easier week. So let me repeat myself on why I think it's an easier week. 1, you don't have a big paper due that's major. Number 2, you have to take some quizzes, read and stuff like that. Get your discussions done, get your responses done, right? Knock that stuff out. Then maybe go into your communication notebook and say, okay, you know what? I did week 1. I'm going to actually start writing about week 1 now. And I'm going to bring in some of this information that I've learned already in the class. That's what you do. Again, it doesn't have to be in the order. Week 5 and the examples don't have to be in the order that you're learning them. So the information provided in week 4 could go in week 1. The information provided in week 1 could go in week 4. So I want you all to know that. It's open, it's a communication notebook. But I keep getting asked questions about, well, what do I do? Or what's the exercise or whatever? It's up to you. That's what makes this so great, is that you get to customize your own communication notebook. And then you get to apply that example to what you have learned. So the application of what you've learned, you get to use your examples to apply to show that you understand the knowledge that you have learned in week number 5. And it comes together full circle. So I hope that this makes more sense. I'm really sorry that none of you can make it today, but I hope that this helps get a little bit further understanding, and maybe I'll see you soon. I'm gonna stop sharing. So maybe I'll see you soon. And I hope I am going to offer twice next week a little office hours because it's the last week and you're working on your final paper. If you all have questions, please reach out, and I look forward to seeing you soon and on the other side. On that note, Dr. G, and I'm out.